Welcome to 4401, GVizzle, Tempest. Today, we're talking gender swaps.
Yeah, Freaky Friday scenario.
Mm-hmm.
So what would each of us find surprising if we woke up and had to live as the other gender for a week?
So, and this is where I think it'll be interesting because we can correct each other where
Yes.
we are incorrect. And I would like to have it known that not only are you going to be a woman for a week, you are going to be a woman on her period.
Well, I don't want to be on my period the whole week because there's going to be good things about being a woman. I don't want to be a woman at the worst part. Maybe I start off fine and then I get my period in the last few days.
Yes, because you definitely need to experience day 2 of a period.
Yeah.
So, and you have to start with hairy legs. Need to shave that shit, but go buy all the stuff that you need. So someone in the comments, sorry, I'm a little bit distracted. Someone in the comments had commented about, like, so I wake up and forget that I'm a man. Because in part of my video, I was talking about manspreading, and that's something we'll cover. But he said, because I live my entire life as a man, I wake up, I'm a woman, I would still have male sensibility. So I would probably still manspread without thinking about it. So for this thought exercise, what previous biological sex knowledge are we bringing with us?
Well, I don't think that like that's really important. That's what's important here, because you're going to have to know you were a man and what it was like to live as a man, and then now being a woman. I mean, like if you're a woman and you're trying to manspread on a train, if you're wearing a skirt, that's not going to look good, and B,
depends who's looking.
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, one of our school plays, basically my year was the first year at school where it became co-ed. Before my year started, it was boys only. And so we had 4 tutor groups per year, and we had 3 girls in each tutor group and 25 boys. Yeah. So we had like house competitions like in Harry Potter. And this one year, it's the first year at the school, year 7, so we're like 12, 13. And we had to put on a play, and my house did a girls' hockey team. And of course, there's only 3 actual girls in the class. So all of the rest of us have to dress up like girls to be in the girls' hockey team. And my mum said at the end, you could easily tell who the actual girls were and who weren't, because all of the boys, we were just apparently sitting there with our legs apart and everyone could see up our skirts. And none of us thought about it.
So you probably wouldn't. Like if you woke up a woman tomorrow and we're sitting on a train, your first inclination would be to like spread.
So I think what would be surprising to us is if we start to manspread and then the guy next to us just easily pushes us out of the way.
Yeah, or the looks you would get from other people on the train.
Yeah, exactly.
So you wake up tomorrow morning. You wake up tomorrow morning and you get out of bed. You're staring at yourself in the mirror and you see that you are now a woman. What's the first thing you do?
I think we all know what a man would do first. Yeah, I think I'd have a quick grope and I'd explore the scenario and see what's going on everywhere. And
3 hours later,
and see, I want to see what it's like, because women, like you're more complicated biologically, and you have a much better time than we do, providing you're being like, if a woman masturbates compared to a man masturbating, a woman can have a much more involved, interesting experience than a guy. And I think that level of pleasure would probably blow my fragile little mind.
So there's your week spent. You wouldn't even leave the house.
Yeah.
For water and protein bars.
Yeah, my legs would just get hairier. And
Gatorade and protein bars and batteries, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, it just seems more fun to me than what men do. Like we just go like that for a bit, and you never know how long it's going to last. It could be like a couple of minutes, or it could be 20 minutes, or it might not finish at all.
But can't you kind of control how long it lasts?
Oh, no,
if you have speed and tempo, like it's
in a way, to an extent, like
it's literally in your hands.
Yeah, but you can extend it as much as you want. Like if you've got the time, you can extend the time. But like there are times where it's harder to make yourself come. And then, like, I've been there for like fucking 40 minutes before, and it's nothing's like, it gets to a certain point and you're like, come on.
So at what point do you just call it a day and be like,
when you get too tired, to carry on. Yeah. Or like, like if I've worked out hard in the day and then my arms are a bit weak, like you just can't do anything.
You just bat it around.
Yeah. Become a frotteur.
So then, because I mean, you work from home, so that would not be that big of a deal. So you'd have to be out and about. So if you were like, let's say, going to an office every day, what do you think or grocery shopping, hanging out with your mates, how do you think that would go down for you?
Well, I think
what would be surprising?
A lot of stuff I don't think would be surprising as such, because having a lot of female friends, like they're quite open about what they have to go through. I think actually experiencing it.
Yeah, like, academically, but you.
Yeah. I've had, because I like, obviously, like I've been assaulted before, and I've had women come on to me before and all that sort of thing, or men come on to me, and I know what that feels like, but to feel that constantly, and just to have your head on a swivel like that like you're in a room alone with a guy, and there's probably a power imbalance there in some way. They're either bigger than you and stronger than you, or they're your boss, or they have some kind of power over you in some way. And then it's like, well, how do you diplomatically shut the situation down? Because if a guy comes on to me, I just laugh and be like, oh, no, it's all right, mate, I'm not like that. And then we move on. Or if a woman comes on to me and then I'm like, oh, no, I'm sorry, I'm not up for that, And then, like, you could let people down nicely. But I know that in that situation, I can look after myself. Like, if it got violent or weird, then I know I can just fuck off. But, or protect myself. And I think a woman doesn't have that. They don't always have that surety about them.
Well, it's a good point, because like there's some times where it's very respected, right? Like, no thanks. It's like, okay. But I saw a video the other day on Reddit where a guy hit on a woman, she rejected him, and he smacked her with a skateboard, knocked her out cold. Yeah, knocked her out cold. And like, I think this happened a couple of years ago, and he's still, even though it's on camera, like it's on the CCTV, whatever camera, he's still not been charged or arrested. And like, all because she rejected him.
Jeez.
So as a woman, like and I think that's where the friend zone conversation comes into play a lot. It's not that women are leading men on or keeping them on a leash. It's that there's a fear of saying no to someone because you never know how they're going to respond. Yeah. It's very rare, not very rarely, but it's more often met with aggression than it is acceptance.
Yeah. And I think that, and it's not even just physical aggression either. It's like, okay, if I let them down, like if I let this guy down, because we have a friendship, then how is he going to respond to that? Are we not going to be friends anymore? Am I going to lose my friend?
Yeah. And then there's the, like, if it's not physical aggression, it's verbal, or it's there's always just that you never know.
Well, just an example, like, and a woman has never done this to me. Okay. So when I was at school, we were 16, and a guy in my drama class came on to me, and I just laughed and I pushed him away, and I was like, no, thanks. And then he just basically turned into a bitch. And then, like, behind my back, he was spreading lies about me. He turned other people in the class against me. And I didn't even know any of this happened. And he was like saying, oh, I don't like Chris anymore, blah, blah, blah. And he was just basically bad-mouthing me every opportunity he got to all of his friends who I was mutual friends with.
Because you rejected him.
Yeah. And a woman has never done that.
And it's sad that there needs to be, like, I don't know if this how common knowledge this is, but in like bars, if a woman asks a bartender for an angel shot, then that's a sign to the bartender that like, I need help. And that, like, it's sad that we have to have that. And like, I remember reading an article once about these, I think it was MIT students who they invented this nail polish that when you dip it into a drink, it would change color if the drink had been roofied.
Oh, cool.
And like, I thought that was amazing. But then so many people were like, well, no, you got to fix the problem. Like, you don't mention rape. It's like, yeah, we know.
Yeah. I'd rather have it.
Until that day comes, let's have the nail polish, right? Like, it's not opening doors for anybody, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have that technology on my person.
Absolutely.
And like,
I think I'm in a very fortunate position, and maybe it's because of where I live. Like the neighborhood I'm in, I always feel very safe. Like I feel safe walking around at night with earbuds in, and like I pay attention to my surroundings, but I never feel unsafe. And so I don't know for me how big of a change it would be if I woke up a man tomorrow. Like I think my biggest thing would maybe be my reaction or other people's responses to me.
I think from my perspective, I think that as a woman, what you'd find surprising about a man is the amount of shit we have to put up with from a lot of people, and a lot of. I think you'd be surprised by what men have to go through, just going about their lives, and and I think that's because it doesn't get any press time, and I think that because people don't really talk about it. But where I used to live when I was growing up in a really rough area, and the city was patchwork, so we'd have a really nice area, then a rough area, then a nice area again. And like I said in another podcast, I'd have to walk like 5 miles to get home and stuff. And then I'd be 16 years old, walking home at 3 o'clock in the morning after a house party, straight through all of the commercial areas, past nightclubs and all that stuff. I couldn't have headphones in because, like, literally, I'd been attacked so many times by people and beaten up so many times that I would never listen to music while I'm walking at night.
I mean, I guess there's still for men, I mean, the threat would be perhaps different, right? Like you'd still have the potential of getting your ass kicked or getting mugged. Whereas with women, there's and potentially raped, not as likely or not as frequently as it happens with women, but that would still be that concern.
Yeah. And it's, I think that the difference is that, like, what happens with women is like a one-on-one situation on your own. And then there's like a man there that it can outmatch you in a lot of ways. And you know that like there isn't much chance of protecting yourself. Whereas for me as a young lad, the problem was groups of other men that would see me looking different because I was into alternative music and I have spiky hair and all that. So they'd want to beat me up just because I was different to them. And I think it's different. Groups
are an issue for women too. You haven't maybe you haven't heard about what's happening in the hockey.
I just mean like in what's more prevalent in those situations. So most women, like, this is more of a problem, it's more prevalent, more common. And then for men, the more common problem is that other thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I would be shocked by, because like, so there was one day I was walking through the ravine and like I could hear someone behind me, and when I looked, it was like a guy also walking in the ravine. He was maybe about 30 feet behind me. So I kind of like slowed down, kind of meandered off to the side and let him pass because I didn't feel comfortable having an unknown man behind me.
Yeah.
But then a few days later, I'm in the ravine and I'm the one now behind a man, and he not a fucking care in the world. He didn't even know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He didn't even know I was there. It didn't even register for him that I was there. And that like was like the difference between that. Like I think if I were to wake up a man tomorrow and go for a walk in the ravine, I think I would notice the female responses to my presence. I mean, I'm presuming I'm still 5'6", right? Like I'm not gonna wake up looking like The Rock, but still, like it would be. I'd be interested to see how that would play out. I would love to go to like mechanics or car lots and like have that interaction. To see if and how different it is.
Well, this is the other thing as well. It's in different scenarios. So where I get that then is in care work, that like people make a lot of assumptions about me going into care works with my accent and just being educated and being male. Then they make the female care workers make a lot of assumptions about me based on all of those things. And then so what you experience as going into a car mechanics, I experience in the more, I guess, maternal, parental type jobs.
Yeah, because if you see a man and a woman in scrubs, you automatically, the woman must be the nurse and the man is the doctor, right? Like that's where our brains typically go.
Well, that is something that used to happen when I was doing on the graduate management scheme in the NHS. They'd often think that the guys, when we've been shown around wards and stuff, because of the clothes that we're wearing, people think that we're doctors. And it's like, no, we just look like one. I'm not actually a doctor.
I just play one on TV.
Yeah. It's a nice feeling though when people think you're a doctor, the way they talk to you. Like people talk to doctors very differently. And there's just like, it's a really weird level of respect and stuff and deference. And I can't put my finger on it. it just felt weird when people were talking to me and they thought I was a doctor and it hadn't come up in the conversation. And then when you tell them you're not, you're a manager, and they're like, oh, okay, then the demeanor kind of subtly changes.
Interesting. I remember so there was a show called Come Dine With Me. You had it in the UK.
Yeah.
I loved that show. So, so Come Dine With Me. There was one episode in the Canada one where one of the contestants was a doctor. She was a general practitioner, family doctor, but she didn't tell anybody. So she'd let them all believe she was like a stay-at-home mom. And it wasn't until 3 or 4 days, like I think it was like the 4th day, that it came out. And they were like, why wouldn't, like, I get that we're strangers, but why wouldn't you tell us? And she goes, I just wanted to be around people who weren't asking me about their symptoms, right? Like she was constantly, as soon as people would find out she was a doctor, they'd be like, what do you think of this mole right here? And she could never not be a doctor. She was like, this is my first time not being a doctor. So I imagine like people would think it's like you're a walking WebMD.
Totally. I mean, what I usually get is working in psychology is, I think my son's autistic. That's what I usually get. Can I break it down and then see if my kid's autistic? I'm like, I'm not a clinician.
So you brought up something interesting in the conversation we had about the pink tax.
Oh, yes.
How surprising that was for you.
Yeah. I saw a TikTok about it, this guy did. And he went to Asda, which is, for those who don't know, that's Walmart for us. Like, it's actually owned by Walmart. And he compared the Asda's own brands of razors between the men's and the women's. And the men's pack was £2, and the same product for women was £3. And it's funny because it was actually pink instead of blue. And
it had fewer razors.
It had 2 razors, and then the men's one had 5. And then the men's, the other thing is that for the men's, you could buy refills as well to take the head off and put the new one on. It wasn't an option for the women's ones. You could only buy the £3 pack of 2 razors.
Oh.
Yeah. And it's because, I mean, there's a shop here called Boots, and then they basically make all their money off feminine products.
We used to have a Boots.
Oh, yeah. That's who my sister works for, but yeah.
I imagine it would be overwhelmed. Like if you were to wake up a woman tomorrow, right? So let's say you're a woman from Sunday to Sunday, and on Thursday you get your period. Having to go to Asda and buy feminine hygiene products. I mean, I don't know if you've ever purchased them before, but it's a wall.
Yes, too much choice.
Of like, there's tampons and like with applicator, without applicator, plastic applicator, cardboard applicator, different sizes, different like shapes. Then you have like, there's panty liners and there's pads, and then the different types of pads and the different thickness of pads and the different sizes of pads and lengths of pads and widths of pads. Do you want wings? Do you not want wings? Do
you? Jesus Christ. Yeah. And I struggle with too much choice at the best of times. And then to look into that, just miasma of colors and options. And then the other thing that they apparently do, I found out recently, is that they change the ingredients a little bit, like literally like micrograms in their in like things like shampoos and stuff. And then they can say it's a new formula, but it's the same as before.
A friend of mine used to, well, not a friend, a previous coworker worked at like Oil of Olay, and they would do that every couple of years, and like new and improved, $1 more, and it's the same. Jesus. And I saw a TikTok, they actually had someone had compared like $700 face cream with $15 face cream, and the ingredients and the amount of the ingredients were almost identical. Like they were off by such a small fraction of a percent that it wouldn't make a difference. It's a total scam.
And then I was thinking as well, like some of the biggest scams in modern Western society revolve around duping women into buying things. Like with all of those products, like you don't need most of them. Precious stones and jewels, like diamonds, are the biggest con. It's a heavily regulated market. And then I can't remember who they are, the people that own the diamond industry basically only let a certain amount come out every year to keep the cost of the diamonds really high. You know? And they're
not, I mean, they're not really great shapes, right? Like it's a clear stone. You can get a cubic zirconia that looks
it just scratch nice. Easier. So just get a new one.
Yeah, and they're cheap. Like I don't see the. Like, I worked a woman in a call center. Like we were all working in a call center making not great money, and their husbands had also like not amazing jobs, but they all had rings that were like this big.
Yeah.
They had these massive diamonds because they all kind of like forced or bamboozled their husbands into buying them these big diamonds as like a show of this is how much you care for me. And it's like, really?
It's supposed to be like a month's salary or something, isn't it? I think 2 months.
Is the rule, I think, is 2 months salary. I would be livid if my if my boyfriend, then whatever, become fiance, spent 2 months salary. Like, no.
I mean, we need that for a house deposit.
Exactly. I knew a woman, I worked with a woman, she spent like $15,000 on her wedding dress alone. She had a massive diamond ring. Her wedding was upwards of $50,000-$60,000, and they were divorced 3 years later.
Wow. Did she just want to do it again? Is that why she got divorced?
I don't know. Like, and maybe it's because I was never one of those girls who was like planning my wedding from the time I was a child. Like I never thought about being married until I was getting engaged to be married. And the biggest reason we got engaged, like we would have been happy shacking up together, but the biggest reason we got engaged is because I have a very traditional Portuguese family and I didn't want to hear it. It's like, we'll plan a party, we'll buy a pretty dress, and then we won't have to hide from my grandmother. Like, but like we did it super on the cheap. I bought my husband an engagement gift as he bought me. Like we changed engagement gifts instead of it being like, oh, here's the dowry. But yeah, the whole thing, and like all the commercials when they come out around Mother's Day and Valentine's Day. Yeah. But then they do the same thing around Father's Day. We get a lot of like watch commercials. Like, oh, here, buy this fancy, expensive watch for your dad, your husband, whatever.
Yeah. And why do you need a special day of the year? Like, I buy my loved ones presents whenever I want to get them. Like if I see something and then it means something in the moment, I don't need a mandatory corporate scheme to tell me to get something nice.
I don't know what the history of Valentine's Day is. Like I know for Mother's Day, the woman who did it, like her mother had passed away and she wanted a day, if memory served, she wanted a day to like honor her mother, remember her mother because her mother had died. She didn't have any children herself. It was just, she wanted that day as like a remembrance of her mother who had passed, which I think was the original intent. It was like your mothers who are no longer there. But Valentine's Day is just a sham.
Yeah.
It's a total sham. Although my mom's birthday is on Valentine's Day, so I always take her out for her birthday. And like every time we go to restaurants, we usually go for lunch. We'll go to restaurants and they'll like give us roses, and it's like we look like a weird couple.
Yeah. Intergenerational relationship.
Yeah, I'm like, they think you've got a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I think, and I think that would be a surprising thing as well, because I don't know, there's like a really weird relationship between these things where men feel obligated to, I guess, get involved in things like that. Buying the diamonds and the things, like you said, like your co-workers duping their soon-to-be husbands into getting those rings. And it's just kind of weird that I think that might be surprising for you is the expectations placed on men in everyday life. I
think, and like I see, so I'm on Reddit, and like, am I the asshole is probably one of my favorite subreddits. And one of them, this guy was like, am I the asshole here? Because I just proposed to my girlfriend with a ring that cost a month of my salary, and she said it wasn't good enough, it wasn't big enough, and she would refuse. Like they'd been together for 7 years, and she refused to accept his proposal unless he got her a bigger ring.
We have a word for people like that. It's called a cunt.
We got a few words for people like that. Yeah, and I was like, dump her.
Yeah, you want to get someone else.
Yeah, like if a condition of marrying you is that you spend an exorbitant amount of money that could be used towards your future, towards vacations, towards memories, towards a house, whatever, and it's like she just wants a bauble.
Yeah. That
I would be afraid to walk around with anyway. Like if I was walking around with $7,000 on my hand, I'd be walking around like that.
Yeah. Be wearing brass knuckles on the other hand, just in case.
Oh man.
Yeah. And again, it's like the going on for marriage is the children thing as well. The most common question I get asked is you're going to get married? But then what I rarely get is about the follow-up about children. And when I tell people I don't want to have children, I think people either think I'm in denial or they just accept it.
Yeah, women are like, when my husband and I were dating, we were constantly asked, I was constantly being asked when we were going to get married. And then like at the wedding, it was like, so when are you gonna have babies? and it's I guess the same, it starts with like children's toys, right? Like little girls get dolls and that's your baby, and you get dolls that like cry and you gotta change their diapers, and that one from Spain or wherever that nurse where like boys would get trucks and whatnot and girls would get kitchen sets and boys would get lawnmowers. Like we start when they're so young. That like the children conversation, I've been in conversations where, or I've heard like my husband will tell people he doesn't want to have kids and they're like, oh okay. But when I tell, like, you're young, you'll change your mind, you'd be a great mom. I had a friend who didn't want to have kids, and then she had a kid, and the kid is the love of her life. And you know, when the hormones kick in, who's going to take care of you when you're older? You're gonna like just mountains and mountains of and then in the same breath they'll be like, we're fucking kids. Like
yeah exactly. And then the thing is, like, kids is another scam, not the kids themselves, but like what you supposedly have to do to give your children a happy life and to develop appropriately. They make up all of this crap that you have to buy them and do for them and constantly entertain them. Like my parents were very low input. I kind of entertained myself the whole time. And,
me too.
Yeah. And it just,
my parents were like, they were first generation, like I'm first generation Canadian, right? Like they were immigrants. They didn't grow up with like gymnastics classes and soccer teams and after school activities. They went to school until I think the 4th grade was mandatory. And then after the 4th grade, the school was up because they're from the Azores. After 4th grade, they'd have to go to a different island to go to school. And like, if your parents couldn't afford that, your education ended at the 4th grade.
Wow.
Or like my dad had a few brothers and one sister, and they decided they would send the boys to the other island for further education. But since the girl was just going to grow up and get married and have babies anyway, she didn't.
Yeah.
And she's like 80 and still bitter about it today. Like she still talks about it. But like it was, so my parents came here and they didn't know, and they came here and they worked their asses off. Like they worked in factories and they did all that stuff. So my brother and sister and I, they're 7 and 8 years older than I am, granted, but our after school activities were get on your bike, ride around the outside. We'd be on the street, you know, like tossing a tennis ball back and forth to each other and then coming inside, like, and we were fine, right? I watched Scooby-Doo, ate a bag of cheesies, and then played handball. Whereas now, like, I see my neighbors have all their, and it's not to say that it's a bad thing, right? But all their kids are in different activities. So it's this constant juggling of like, who's got the kids? Where are you going? Who's driving them here? We got to be here at this time, and you got to be there at that time. And it's exhausting. Yeah. And I don't know then that kids know how to handle being bored. I don't know that they then know how to entertain themselves or just be, because they've always had to be somewhere that you can't just, they've never been alone in their own company.
Yeah, exactly. They don't know how to just sit there and just twiddle their thumbs for a bit and just think about something and just be in their own mind.
My niece would say things like, I'm bored. And it's like, how could you possibly be bored?
There's so much to do. Yeah.
Like a million things to do.
Like whenever I say I'm bored, like I use it as a joke, and my partner's still like, it takes her by surprise sometimes, because she's like, how can you be bored? I'm like, I don't literally mean I'm bored. I mean, I can't decide what to do.
Exactly. It's like, it's analysis, like the decision fatigue.
Yeah.
Do I want to do this or this or this or this or this? Yeah, I don't get it. But
it's like, I'm bored because I've been looking at Netflix for an hour trying to decide what to watch, and I can't decide.
That's the worst.
Yeah.
That was the worst.
Yeah.
And there's also like on Netflix, I find like a little bit of like FOMO. Like my husband and I will browse through Netflix, and if we find something within the first like 3 minutes of browsing, instead of just being happy and like high-fiving that we had a stroke of luck, like
you have to keep looking. That'll be the backup, is what we say.
Let's see if there's anything else we can watch an hour later. Like, you want to watch that thing we found 57 minutes ago? Yeah.
And I think the other thing that'd be surprising, and like I saw this comment a lot in the video you did on TikTok, which would be the workload of the mother or the woman in the relationship compared to the rest of the family. And like, you know, I mean, I know that in like you and us here, like we both have quite equitable relationships, but a lot of families don't. So I mean, like my partner cooks dinner because she wants to cook dinner, kind of thing. I don't know if it's the same for you as well. And
Yeah.
but imagine your family every night expecting you to cook dinner and demanding it. And then whereas like a guy could be like, nah, I don't want to. And then there was that other TikTok, wasn't it, with that person was saying that a woman would be seen as lazy and a man would be seen as a cool dad. Like, I'm not too sure how true that is, but certainly a man can get away with winging it and blagging it a bit more than the mother can.
Yeah, women are judged a lot more harshly, and I see that a lot on TikTok. I mean, I've never again had the experience of having to feed children, but like I see a lot of like women who are just like, I'm exhausted, and like when I don't feel like cooking and I want to get something like easy and quick for the kids, people look at me like, how could you feed them that, right? Like it's, and I grew up in one of those houses, right? Like my dad worked shift work, so the only time he ever cooked was when he was working the night shift, because he was leaving for work before anybody else would get home. So he would make himself food. He wouldn't make it for the family. He would feed himself, and then when my mom would get home from work, she would have to feed the rest of us. And then she still would like, because he would get home at like 2:00 in the morning, he'd get home hungry. So my mom, before going to bed, would make him like a snack and leave it on the table. So when he got home, he would have his snack. But that was that. Like he didn't clean. Like I don't think my dad ever picked up a vacuum. Like he didn't do any of that stuff. He was outside, right? He would cut the grass and take care of the garden. And then inside was all my mom's domain, including like the groceries and all that other stuff that she had to take care of. So they were very, and like I guess because I grew up that way, our house is very much like that. I cook because I enjoy cooking. I enjoyed that process of it. But like, and my husband does mostly the outside stuff and I do most of the inside stuff, mostly because I hate gardening.
Yeah, I hate it. I can't stand it.
So like we've split into seemingly historically gender roles, but it's also where our preferences are, right? Like I'm picky when it comes to vacuuming and dusting, so I'd rather just do it. It's just it's fallen that way, but not because I'm a woman, he's a man, this is where our jobs are. It's like I don't do weeds, I don't want to cut the grass, I don't want to be outside, I don't if I'm going to be outside, if I'm going to be outside, I want to hang out with the dogs with a cold drink and a book.
So yeah, with cats, but
yeah, that's my outside.
My partner does the gardening and always has done. Like our relationship's been a bit different the last sort of 3 years because of my back, because I got really bad. So we haven't had that equitability, but it's more like my jobs don't get done, and then she does her jobs, then we muddle through on my job somehow. But it's bad for my back to do the lawnmower kind of thing, but she prefers gardening anyway, and I fucking hate it. So
yeah, my husband loves like mowing the lawn. Like he gets a lot of satisfaction out of like mowing the lawn. More power to him.
Well, we in that job I used to do, I was working with the learning disabled offenders, and then they had like a garden in their house that they lived in, and then so one of the jobs that we had to do on as care workers would buddy up with them in the fucking garden and like plant stuff and grow potatoes and shit, and it was the worst days imaginable would be in like January or February, which granted isn't as cold as you guys, but January or February in the fucking garden doing shit that I hate.
Our gardens are covered by like feet of snow by January, February. So for us, it's shoveling or like which I don't mind shoveling. I actually like shoveling snow for some reason.
Are you looking for fun new glasses that won't break the bank? Go to zlul.com. They have daily flash sales. You can find frames as low as $2. Prescription, non-prescription, sunglasses, they have it all. Use my promo code to save.
So yeah, I think a day in the life at work would be different because I'm so accustomed to not even like, and again, I guess I've just been, a lot of the things that I talk about in the videos, I've experienced more when I was younger than I do now, but there is always that, like you're walking past someone in the hallway, you're probably going to get touched, right? Like you're going to be like hand on the lower back or shoulders or elbow, whatever. And I think I would take a lot of things for granted that I have, like if an elevator door opens as a woman, usually, right? So I think I would probably still be that person like, all right, I'm walking in the elevator, and then have a woman looking at me like, what the fuck, man?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it would also be really interesting to find out if, I don't know how to word this the way that I want to word it without, I don't know how it's going to come across, but I'm going to put my thinking cap on. How am I in that? I wonder how much of the things I complain about, I've also taken for granted or taken advantage of.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Like being the first one in an elevator or out of an elevator, like that's just something that I would be accustomed to. Like I wonder if that's not where I wanted to go with that. That's not what I was thinking. It was more so, I don't know. I can't articulate it. I've got the thought rambling around, but it's not coming together.
Let's see if we can pull it out a bit then. I think my one bit of advice would be, if you're going to be a man for a week, don't go getting on any cruise ships or doing anything really dangerous when women and children are present, because you have to save them first.
Isn't that a myth? Isn't that a myth that they did that?
Not really, no. But it's like, because on the Titanic, if like there was a bloke that, you know, there were editors and men dressing as women to try and get on the life raft, and they were thrown off. So it's more so like the systems that women complain about, and also men, right? The systems that we both complain about, we also benefit from. So would we still recognize those benefits of that? Right? Like it's very easy for, as much as I would, like I wouldn't cry to get out of a speeding ticket, but I know that I probably could, right? Yeah.
Right? So that system that I would say is misogynistic and patriarchal is also benefiting me, right? Like there is some privilege to that if that was gone, and if I got like pulled over for speeding, if like now I'm a 48-year-old man trying to get out of a ticket by crying, like how far are they?
yeah, it wouldn't work. You just get laughed at, and then you get 2 tickets. And I think that's true of everything though. Like, because my personal opinion is that both genders have a shit time. The real problem is between the elites and everybody else. That's the only competition that is really happening. And I think that there is inequity and imbalance in a lot of our systems, but in one area where women have it worse, in another area men have it worse. There is actually research that talks about how, you know, a lot of the things that women complain about in the workplace, when a man is in a female-dominated workplace, he will experience the same things as women do in a male-dominated workplace. Exactly the same. Sexual harassment, feeling ostracized by the group, not being able to be part of conversations, being judged, and all those other things. It is identical.
Yeah, you know, I'm not surprised by that. I think historically men have always been told, like, there's different levels of acceptance to that outcry or outrage or whatever, that, you know, women being silenced has so much more history. So it's like we're bringing up all those, you know, historical women who have been silenced, whereas with men it's kind of like there's that feeling like you had a good run. You had your turn. It's our turn now. And it's you turn a blind eye to what you don't experience, right? Like our experiences are ours. So I'm not going to tell you that what you're experiencing isn't, but I guess it's that power imbalance, that physicality, that like you said earlier, but that I would not fare as well in a fight as you would, physical fight as you would. So there's that, it's that extra level of
yeah.
And you know, like the glass ceiling is kind of a real thing for women, where there's only so high you can go. And
but I think we misattribute where those things come from. The main problem that women have, because, like, you know, I've explained before in TikToks and stuff that how the gender wage gap is a complete myth. There are actually other more damaging inequalities in the workplace that affect women, that really only affect women and not men. And one of them is the glass ceiling. But all of this comes around because of child rearing. Yeah. And that's the biggest thing.
It hasn't been, I mean, I'm gonna say that long. It's been a long time since it's been illegal to ask, you know, do you have children? Are you married? Are you engaged? Are you gonna have children? but not all that long. And the reason those questions are illegal is because women would be judged against that. Like if you were, I know, if you were hiring someone for a senior position and they were in their 20s, 30s as a woman, you'd be like, she's probably gonna have kids soon, and then we got to backfill for their mat leave. Maternity leave now in Canada is a year. Like I know in the US, it's only a matter of weeks, so it's probably not that big of a deal. But it went several years ago from 6 months to a year. So you're hiring a woman of childbearing age.
Yeah.
There was a lot of discrimination that she has kids, like we're fucked. Like
and again, this isn't something that men get with the same prevalence, because like that, what you're saying there is pretty much most women will experience that. But depending on the industry, men can experience it as well. Mainly with sales or executive management, that young unmarried men were preferred, and if you're older and married, you would be less likely to get the job because you have the same problems that the women do. It's like, you have to pick your kids up from school, or your kid might get sick, or your wife might want you to do something, blah, blah, blah. So the company isn't your priority, and they would judge you for that too. But again,
and it's also even in the workplace, like when I've worked in like call centers, because there's like 50, 60, 80, 100 people sometimes in call centers, you see the difference in how people are treated when it's like a mother who gets a call in the middle of the afternoon, like I got to go pick up my kid, they're sick, versus a man who says I got to go pick up my kid, they're sick. It's not as believed when men say it, because they're like, well, where's the mother, why isn't she doing it? Like it's always the expectation that the mother will be the one who goes. That when like there were guys in our call center who would get up and leave, people were like, he's probably just taking the afternoon off. And he's just like he's an engaged father, like
he doesn't expect his partner to do everything, so
it's an equitable relationship.
Another thing I think men would find surprising, because I found this surprising when I learned about it, which was that there's no sisterhood among executive management with women. So for example, in universities in the UK, only 15% of vice chancellors are women. 15%. That's like nothing. But all those women there, like you would expect, well, I'll help other women. I'll have like proteges or, help them come up. No, all of them say, no, I had a hard time, so they can fucking have a hard time too.
It's really one of the two. And I've had female leaders who fall in both camps. Like I've had female leaders who were like, I'm going to, they try to develop networks, women's networks, and like mentor and build up and promote, because they want to make it easier, right? It's like parents, right? Every parent generation wants to make it easier for them, for their kids, and they had it. But then I've had, again, the opposite side where it was like, I had to fight and claw my way. You got to fight and claw your way. It's like, well, what was the point of you doing that if not to pave the way for women who are going to come behind you? Like that's the right way to do it, is to make it easier and break down those barriers so it's easier for every generation, because then you'll have more than 15% in 2022 of chancellors.
Yeah, exactly. And it is really surprising. I think I think
what would be surprising for women is whether or not there is the old boys club that we think there is.
No, there isn't. That's the thing. There isn't. I've never experienced it. What I think you think of as the old boys club is because a lot of the way that things were done were carried over from back when a lot of workplaces were dominated by men, and so they did things in a certain way. And I think that only happens in certain industries. So like in general, there isn't a boys club. I mean, most of the time I'm working for women anyway, like because I work in healthcare. So, that's probably why I've never experienced it. And I think it's more in things perhaps like if they've gone to the same school, like they're all the posh Eton kids, and then they have a boys club when they go to their next thing, when they grow up.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, I just think it might be different to how you imagine it.
I also wondered about the emotional aspect of it. Like if you were to experience your first period.
Yeah.
So you would, depending on, I know it's different for different women, but there's like the mood swings in advance, and all of a sudden you're like walking down the stairs and you're like, why do my nipples hurt? Like, and then, I'm not hungry, but I could really eat an entire cheesecake. Like those things would be very different, but also I'm wondering as a man, if it would be if I would be surprised by the emotional aspect of it. And like, I read this article once that was talking about like how often men think about sex during the day versus how often women think about sex during the day. Like, I wonder if that would kind of be like, oh my God, stop it. Like, well, it would just take me by surprise, the thought process versus more the outward.
But most of that stuff about thinking about sex all the time that's kind of bullshit. Like, we're not constantly thinking about sex. We're easier to get going, and sometimes you're horny when you don't want to be. That's very different, I think, than for a woman. I don't know, because like, it's more interesting trying to woo a woman than a man, I imagine. Because like a bloke, you could just do it on the day, but like a woman, if you want to really do it properly, it could take you like a week, you know, to like set the groundwork properly.
Well, I follow a doctor on TikTok who was talking about the differences in arousal, and like men are, I forget what she called it. Like, there's the technical terms for it, but it was very much like if a woman was to come over and, you know, tickle your taint, you'd be like, all right, let's go. Whereas for women, it needs to be like, they need to be wooed, and there needs to be foreplay, and it needs to be like, you know, you can't just shit the bed all day playing video games with a sink full of dishes and then expect to get some. Like, there's,
exactly. Yeah.
You know, right? So yeah, there's that. So I wonder how that would be different. I wish it were possible to wake up and be a man for a week. I think I wonder if there was a global gender swap. Like, I wonder what that would do the week after, right? Like, because that there would be like angry people who would continue to be angry and want to work out that anger. So if you are a very angry woman, now that you're a man, and you know that every woman you see yesterday was a man, like,
they're going to enact their trauma. Yeah,
right. Like, I think it would be very dangerous. Dangerous.
I wouldn't recommend it for a lot of people, I think, because it would just be that reenacting trauma. They'd create lots of victims, very bitter victims, who would then go back to their original gender and then reenact the trauma that was enacted upon them just now.
Yeah, it would be a vicious cycle.
Yeah, because it is a vicious cycle anyway. You know, I think
if you were given the option, right, you can do it. And you had the option for how long you would be a woman. How long do you think you would want to be in that space?
Probably just like a week or two, I think.
That would be enough?
Yeah, because I want to be me. I like being me.
Well, you're not going to be a woman forever, but like,
no.
You could say like, okay, a year, 6 months, a month.
Yeah, I think in like a week or two, like if you did it properly, you could experience most of the things you need to experience, I think.
Would you want to look like just the female version of yourself, or would you want it to be like creating a character in a video game? You're like, I'll take that hair and those boobs and that.
I think it'd be better just to like, because I didn't know I was going to look like this handsome when I was a kid, did I? You know, I had no idea. Yeah.
Who knew?
I know, it's like an ugly duckling. But so I just think I'd rather just wake up and just see what I get.
I wonder how it'd be like, because like center of gravity is different, right? Have you ever seen those challenges where like, I think it's like a chair challenge, like women will, because they're where their center of gravity is, they can physically pick up a chair from a certain position where a man can't because the center of gravity. Like, I wonder if that would make like walking for the first time a bit wobbly, like, whoa.
Yeah, especially if like, you know, you're an endowed lady, you know.
Yeah, if you had breasts for the first time, if you had big boobs tomorrow, like.
Oh, what are you going to do about the bollocks though? Don't cross your legs, like, you know, too much.
I'd be looking for a sling. I wonder if afterwards I'd be like, I kind of get manspreading now. Although no, I don't. It's aggressive. Like, some of them are aggressive.
There's sitting with your legs apart, and there's manspreading, and I'm not a fan of manspreading. You gotta, like, in public places, you have to respect space.
Exactly. Like I said, if the confines of your seat are this and your legs are like that, knock it off. Yeah,
exactly. But again,
I wonder if I would be a boxers or a briefs kind of guy. I think boxer briefs.
I like the ones in between. Yeah,
boxer briefs, because it keeps everything.
It depends on the weather. Like, I like to wear boxers if it's hot, and then boxer briefs like in the autumn and winter.
Do you feel it slapping around when it's? Nope. Don't worry about it. Don't answer that question. I'll find out for myself.
yeah. But the center of gravity thing's really interesting, because have you ever watched women who've never fired a gun before? Have you seen them try to fire a rifle?
Yeah, it usually knocks them right on their asses.
Well, not quite like that, but it usually, it's because of the way they're standing. So they kind of like, they hold the gun up like that, and they kind of lean backwards. Whereas like you're supposed to lean forward and like kind of have your shoulder up, and then so it goes into your shoulder, and it can't force you back. But we'll go like that. She'll put it on her shoulder, but like her back is arched back like that. So there's no way of stopping yourself falling backwards.
There's a guy I see walking his dog, and his gait when he walks is like that. It's like the Monty Python skit when they're doing like the big funny walk. Like he always looks like he's leaning back as he's walking. And he's the only person I've ever seen walk like that. And every time I see him, I like stop and like, is it natural? Is it like,
yeah. Did you have back problems or, you know?
It's very bizarre. But yeah, like imagine that would be different because the center of gravity would be different. Like weight distribution would be different. Like I wonder how odd that would be. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would take a little bit to, especially because your feet tend to be smaller as well.
Yeah, and then I mean, most women have smaller ankles. I got cankles, so it's. But you'd have to try wearing high heels.
Yeah.
And a dress.
I've tried wearing them anyway. What makes you think I haven't worn women's clothes before?
I shouldn't doubt you. What's one thing that you would want to make sure I experienced?
I'm not saying this just to be juvenile, but I would say have a wank, see what that's like.
Oh, that's the first thing I'm doing.
Oh, you need to know.
That's the first, fifth, and seventh thing I'm doing.
Yeah. And you also need to know how pleasurable having a shit when you're really desperate is. Because we have a prostate. No, you don't know. We have prostates.
Oh.
Yeah. And so a shit feels good. Huh?
Talk to me about this. How does it, like, sexually pleasuring?
No, it just feels nice. Like, you know when you get sensations that feel pleasurable and nice, but not in a sexual way. And
taking
it's like,
a shit feels nice. As a woman, taking a shit feels nice.
So it would just feel nice.
You have to experience period shits.
I've never heard of this one.
It's unpleasant. It's for some women get like diarrhea when they have their period. So like,
okay,
it's coming out of everywhere, right?
Yeah. Red and brown and yellow
and like clots and cramps, and your back hurts and your ovaries feel like like everything. Yeah. Everything is just.
You can feel your heartbeat in your ovaries.
Yeah, it's unpleasant. It's just like a constant. Like, you ever been to a club and you stood beside the speaker when there's a lot of bass?
Yeah.
That's happening in your vagina.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a wank and a shit is what you would want me to experience as a man. Those are the two must-dos.
Yeah. Oh, and also you want to kind of, I think another important thing is get angry about something, and just to know what testosterone feels like and how hard it is to be level-headed and calm as a man and not lose your shit. So
interesting.
Yeah, because it's because testosterone is one of the most powerful things I think that men have. It's just because it does so much like good and bad for us. And one of them is like when men can like get angry or defensive and all that sort of thing, and just slap the shit out of a punching bag, I reckon. And just to know what it is to feel that aggression, because obviously you've got angry in your life, everybody has, but you haven't got man angry.
I wonder what I would be like as a man. Like, I wonder how much my personality would change as a man, because I usually don't get angry about a ton of stuff, or like I fizzle out quickly because it just feels like anger to me feels like it's just a wasted emotion. Yeah. So like, I wonder if that would still be the same if I was testosterone. Would you keep your mannerisms? Because because my mannerisms, but then I would present more as an effeminate man, presumably. Where you would be more like a butch woman because of your mannerisms.
Yeah. Maybe more people would think you're a lesbian then.
Maybe. I had a lot of people thinking that when I was in high school. You ever seen the movie, what is it? What Women Want? That Mel Gibson movie from back in the day?
Yeah.
Like he was still, would you rather? Here's to segue into would you rather. Would you rather wake up tomorrow as a woman? Or like Mel Gibson in the movie, wake up tomorrow knowing what women think, not hearing the thoughts of every woman like he did in the movie, just being able to think like a woman, have a woman brain, but still in a man's body and man's experiences.
What makes you think I can't do that already?
Because you'd answer the fucking question.
That's a tough one. I mean, if it was, the deal breaker for me would be if I could actually hear their thoughts. I wouldn't want that. That would fuck with your head.
But if you were like, I guess one of the things I would find interesting is is hearing how men talk to other men when they don't think there's a woman around. Like, I think that would be fascinating. And it would probably be the same. Like if you were to be a woman tomorrow and I was like, hey, come to my book club. You got to like see how women speak and talk when they don't think there's a man around. Like I think there would be differences to how communication would occur and what topics of conversation would be and how deeply those conversations would get.
I think I'm quite a bad person to talk to about that, I think, because again, just having so many of my friends being women, that I think that because for the ones that know me, I think they do kind of talk to me like that anyway, and I talk to everybody the same. And I think that that's been one of my barriers to forming good relationships with men, is because I don't talk to them differently if there's women around. Like I don't engage in certain styles of conversation. So I think
that may be more interesting for me then if I was around, and like I'm not talking about like my friend group of men, but like if I was in a work meeting or you know, in an elevator with a bunch of men and like whatever social situation there was, that if that would be a difference in.
So I think what you would find quite funny is seeing how much men are peacocking and lecking, like if when women are there, and like because it's not something that I do or my male friends that I do have, they don't do it either. So when but most men do, and then just seeing how their demeanors change, and like I had some mates years ago who'd like get louder if there was a woman in the group talking with us, and they would just like get louder and more boisterous and just a bit more extroverted.
Interesting.
Yeah. And there was a study done years ago when mobile phones were first becoming a thing, and then they would have women approach a table of men who had like mobile phones and things like that, and then they would see how the behavior of the men would change. And then they start being a bit more corporate-y and getting their mobiles out. So that's so like lecking, for those that don't know, is for example, what birds do when they display their dances and their feathers and all that. They're lecking to try and get the attention of the female.
Look at me, I have a phone, I'm so important.
Exactly. And then they'll start taking calls and they'll start like jazzing it up. And they just start basically lecking with all their corporate shit to try and impress the woman. And men don't even know they're doing it. Like they don't even they don't even realize they're doing it most of the time.
I wonder what it is that women do that we don't realize we're doing.
Preening, I think. It's kind of like, you know,
What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about.
What I think most men would find, actually, I don't even think I would even be that surprising, is how judgmental women are of other women.
Yeah,
a lot of the time, women's worst enemies sometimes are other women.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem with, like, a lot of women talk a lot about supporting other women and bigging other women up, but then we'll take the first opportunity to shit talk. And like, it's unfortunate because I see it in like TikTok comments and like Reddit comments all the time. A woman will make a post and then other women get in there. It's like, aren't we supposed to, like, isn't that the point of us building each other up and supporting one another? And like, you may have it's not like I'm saying we don't hold people accountable to their actions, but just not actively try to bring someone down. Like I've seen comments where someone will make a video about like topic A, B, and C, and one of the comments will be like, you should fix those eyebrows. It's like,
yeah.
What does that have to do with anything I'm talking about?
Yeah, and I think that is something that women can learn from men, actually, is the way that there's a fine line between banter and bullying, okay? And most of the time men get it right, and it's like if one of your mates does something really dumb, right, blokes will take the piss out of each other for it, and then it regulates you in society so you don't act like a dick when you get older and you go out into the world. And it's like a lot of these behaviors, the negative behaviors that women experience from men, is because they haven't had other men around them at key points in their life telling them, don't do that, you'll be an idiot, or you'll make the woman uncomfortable, or it's wrong, you know, the whole spectrum. And then men regulate each other's behavior like that through like jokingly shaming each other or like just taking the piss. And I think if women can learn that function of men, then it'll help you understand us better, and it might
Women
help
do
you.
that with each other too.
Do they?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, but
I once in a restaurant said cannelloni instead of cannoli, and I've still not fucking lived that down. Like,
cannelloni. No, we say cannelloni
instead of cannoli. Yeah, no, women do the same thing.
Yeah.
I think what there's a lot of boys will be boys that women don't get. So I think a lot of men perhaps, like there was a video I saw of a woman who her 15-year-old son was being detained for making like serious threats online. And she was like, he's just a boy, he's just a boy. He's 15, like he knows better. You and your husband and whoever his other adult influences are should have taught him better that it's not, you can't do the boys will be boys shit for a long time. Whereas like girls are told like if a guy pulls your pigtails it's because he likes you. So we're kind of taught if someone treats you like shit, it's because they like you. And then we're supposed to unlearn that when we're in the dating pool. And so the same boys who are like pulling your pigtails in the 3rd grade are now telling you make shitty choices with men in the when they're 30. It's like, well, fuck.
Yeah. And it's I think it would help a lot of women if they could see what men were like, actually, most of the time.
I think it would help a lot of men to see what women are like.
Yeah. Because I
think it would help men more to find out how women think. And it would help women to see how men behave.
Also, I think it would be good for men to see or experience, I guess, kind of see the effect that their flirtations have on women. Because there's clear, like, it's not rocket science that there's clear boundaries of when you can flirt and approach a woman and when you can't. And a lot of men don't realize that. And a lot of men don't realize that a woman's just being nice or pleasant or friendly. And then they think a woman's coming onto them. Like, I had a mate used to say dumb shit like, oh, that girl smiled at me, it means she fancies me. And I'd be like, no, dude, if you looked at yourself in the fucking mirror, she doesn't fancy you. Like, she's way out of your league.
Yeah, you made eye contact and she smiled because she's polite.
Yeah. That's
the thing. Like, politeness is often misinterpreted as interest. Yeah. But then when women do smile, it's like, oh, because she fancies me. If we're not smiling, we get told to smile. It's like,
maybe women need to wear T-shirts or signs on their head that say, just because I'm smiling, it doesn't mean I'm looking.
Insufferable.
Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, that was interesting.
I'd still want to do it.
Yeah, I'd want to.
I would want to have more physicality though. Like I would not want to be 5'6". Like I'd want to be like a 6 foot tall man, and like I'd want to be imposing.
Yeah. Or at least.
Would you want to be a 6 foot tall woman?
I wouldn't mind that, actually. It'd be quite interesting. One of my mates is 6 foot, and another one's 6'1", and
I think it would be a very different experience. And okay, so I would actually want to be like a 6 foot tall man for 2 weeks, and then a 5'4" man for 2 weeks to see what the difference is.
That would be interesting. Yeah. Because one of the things that we're really shit at as human beings is understanding what life is like for people that are not like us. I was listening to a guy talking the other day. He's talking about intelligence, and he's saying that like a lot of these academics and things, like our IQs are obviously above 100, we'll say. But he was saying that, like, what a lot of us fail to understand is what life is like for people whose IQ is 85 to 100, which is most of the population. And how, like, when we're going through life, what life is actually like for them. So, like, you know, if you go to a shop or something and you ask somebody there a question, but if you ask them 2 questions, they can only answer one of them, and then they forget what the other question is, and it can be really frustrating. It's like, I fucking asked you 2 questions, answer them, you know. But it's like, we should be more patient, because, you know, they probably can't remember the other question. They probably can only answer a question at a time, kind of thing. And that's not being derogatory. It's just like, that's what most people are like. And,
it would be difficult. I mean, like, there's like those sayings about like walk a mile in someone's shoes and put yourself in their perspective, but you can't put yourself in someone else's perspective because you don't know what that perspective is. Like, I don't know what someone else's, how they're looking at it through their life experience and their lens and whatever that is. So I can try to guess, but I can't. We need to be better at communicating with one another globally, of like, these are what my needs are. Like, you know, so if I'm in a shop and I ask someone 2 questions and they can only answer one, like, there's got to be a breaking down of any barriers or shame to saying, please ask me them one at a time. I can answer them one at a time. Or like, we just need to be able to better articulate without the fear of being bullied or mocked, right? It's like when someone doesn't know something, other people take great pleasure in making fun of them for not knowing that thing. But it's like, you didn't always know that thing either. You also had to learn it. So don't mock someone because they're learning it at a different pace than you are.
Yeah, exactly. And like, the other thing is like, if you kind of go around the life judgmentally and thinking that other people are less than, you're going to miss out on so many experiences. Again, like, so like the market, one of the criteria of learning disability is your IQ is 65 or less. And if I went in thinking, well, their IQ is 65 or less and mine's like 126, then, you know, clearly they're going to be they're not going to be able to teach me anything, because what the fuck do they know? I've got a master's degree. And if I had that attitude, I should not be a care worker.
Absolutely.
And because like one of them, like they were always teaching me new shit. And, you know, I used to play football a lot as a kid, but I could never do keepy ups. You know, when you kick the ball. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know how much you have soccer over there. And then anyway, one of the guys taught me how to do keepy ups. And I was like, you know, in my 30s and the first time in my life being able to do keepy ups. And it's like, you know,
everyone has something to teach.
Exactly.
Right? Like, if someone has an IQ of 140, maybe they can teach you the Pythagorean theorem, but that doesn't mean that someone who has an IQ of 40 can't teach you how to, you know, cook something or create something or sing something. Like, everyone's got something they can teach.
Yeah. And or even just to enrich your life with them being around. Like, and like all of these guys had commit crimes, you know, they were all forensic cases. But if I just shut myself off and only saw all of those bad things, that 18 months of my life would have been really fucking boring. And I wouldn't have had all these rich experiences that I can now go and talk to other people about and share.
And if you had shut yourself out of that and only saw them as criminals, then you wouldn't have had the opportunity to enrich them, right? Like, the whole purpose of that would be an attempt at, if possible, rehabilitation. And they're not going to get rehabilitated if everyone constantly treats them as criminals.
Exactly.
It's like if you have a partner who's constantly accusing you of cheating, eventually you're gonna be like, fuck it, I'm just gonna
might as well. That's what you think I am.
Exactly. So if you treat people with like that they have the best of intentions, hopefully you can get them to that place. I mean, you know sex offenders more than I do. Maybe some will, some won't, but
well, but these guys, because they're learning disabled, they can't learn from experiences. And most of them, the vast majority of them, they're only criminals because they were abused as kids and they don't know any different and they can't learn different. So that's why they're in care. That's why they have 24-hour support. The other offenders that are in a normal prison, they could learn from experience, but because of their failures that they have, they don't want to learn from experience and they refuse to. So those men are genuinely evil. The guys I was working with, victims who need to be protected, and you need to protect society from them. So it's like a reciprocal protection thing. But because most of them have been in like a secure hospital for like 15 years, which is longer than any prison sentence they would have got, you know, they deserve a semblance of a life, even though they're never going to have the same freedoms as the rest of us. You can keep the public safe at the same time as giving them a life, basically.
a nice way to do it.
Yeah, it is. And I certainly wouldn't be saying we should do the same thing with non-disabled sex offenders.
Yeah, there's a difference between knowing better and not
Yeah.
knowing any better.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the line.